Okay. We are getting ready to go. Let's see. Let me just check to make sure we are on Facebook too. Let's see. Yes, it is working. And we'll turn the volume up in a little while. I'm using this computer right now. Different computer. Let's see. Let's see if this works. Probably not. Probably not. That looks weird. Okay. Let's not use a background today. All right, so we're ready to start. And let's see if this sounds any better today. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Haribo, 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 Jai Gauri, Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramacharya, also Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chalana Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And at the Devotee voice now, Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Go Shri Krishna Caitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikapanath Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagadasami Ki Jai, Yamunamaya Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasidevi Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Paramananda, Hari Hari Bol. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarni. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorancia. So, today we're going to continue with our study of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, and it is actually, see what's happening. So, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, beginning from text 14, and this continues the discussion between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami, and this chapter is entitled The Process of Devotional Service. The last chapter dealt with Krishna's sweetness and Krishna's opulence, and this is the Process of Devotional Service chapter. And we're going to learn a lot from this particular chapter, hopefully, so we can execute devotional service in a more devotional way. Because the difference between devotional service and ritualistic activities are done simply thinking that the ritual is going to save you. And that's something like karma kanja activities. And actually it's more like karma mimamsa philosophy. That the rituals are going to make you Krishna conscious. Not the rituals. We do the rituals, but the rituals should be done, as Krishna says in the Gita, Yat Karoshi Yadashnashi Yadadashi Jadasi Yat Tapashashi Kantya Tat Kurashwa Manarpanam. Everything should be done as an offering to Krishna with love and devotion. So if you do something without love and devotion, not going to work so well. I mean, that may be better than nothing, but it won't work as well as something done with love and devotion. Krishna says, offer me a leaf, a fruit, or water with love and devotion. So let's go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, 14th verse. I believe this is the 14th verse. Let's see. Yeah, 14 to 15. Kama Krodera Dashana Taralati Kaya Vramate Yadi Sadhuvaja Paya Tanrupadesha Mantri Sachi Palaya Krishna Bhakti Paya Tabe Krishna Nikataya. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires. And when these are not fulfilled, he becomes the servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy, Maya. Wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance get the association of a devotee physician whose instructions and hymns make the witch of the external energy flee. The conditioned soul thus gets in touch with devotional service to Lord Krishna. In this way, he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord. An explanation of verses 8 through 15 is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabhava Bhasha. The Lord is spread throughout the creation in his quadruple expansions and incarnations. Quadruple means Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Krishna is fully represented with all potencies in each and every personal extension, but the living entity, hold on a second. The living entities, although separated expansions, are also considered one of the Lord's energies. The living entities are divided into two categories, the eternally liberated and those who are eternally conditioned. Those who are ever liberated never come in contact with Maya, the external energy. The ever-conditioned souls are always under the clutches of the external energy. This is described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, the 7th chapter. Text 14. Daiva Yeshu Gunamayi Mamamaya Durachya. This divine energy of mind, consisting of three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. So, anyway, Maya is Krishna's energy, and it's difficult and impossible to overcome. You can't overcome it because you can't fight with Maya. You can't control your mind. You can't keep yourself from being attracted to things of this material world. But by Krishna's mercy, by the process of bhakti, you can. The Nityabhadas are always conditioned by the external energy, and the Nityamuktas, Nityabhadas means eternally conditioned, and the Nityamuktas, that means eternally liberated, never come in contact with the external energy. Sometimes an ever liberated person associated with the Supreme Personality of God who descends into this universe just as the Lord descends. Although working for liberation of the conditioned soul, the messenger of the Supreme Lord remains untouched by the material energy. Generally, ever liberated personalities live in the spiritual world and associates of Lord Krishna. Actually, we read this yesterday. No, what is the right verse? I guess we went part way through. Generally, ever liberated personalities live in the spiritual world as associates of Lord Krishna. They are known as Krishna Parshada, Parishada, associates of the Lord. Their only business is enjoying Lord Krishna's company, and even though such eternally liberated persons come within this material world to serve the Lord's purpose, they enjoy Lord Krishna's company without stoppage. That's actually a really interesting point. Even though they're here, these eternally liberated souls, they never stop being in Krishna's association. In other words, what you see is just the tip of the iceberg. That's an interesting expression, the tip of the iceberg. Let's say, talk about the Titanic. Okay, what was the Titanic? The Titanic was a big boat, and it was made with iron in its hull, iron and steel. And the motto of the Titanic was that not even God can sink the ship. It was so big. So it set out on its maiden voyage from Europe to the United States, and guess what? It ran into an iceberg. Now, how could it run into an iceberg? That's weird. Well, one reason it ran into an iceberg was that the majority of the iceberg was below the surface. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, take an ice cube and put it into some water, and you'll see that the majority is below the surface. And of course, with an ice cube, it's square, but an iceberg is not square. Usually you have the heavy portion below and the light portion above. Makes sense? So it's actually bigger below than it is above. So, why am I talking about icebergs? I'm talking about comparing pure devotees to icebergs. Not that they're cold, not that there's something going on below the surface you can't see. Well, there is, but it's above the surface. It's an upside-down iceberg. Is that you see a little bit of the pure devotee, his external activities, but his devotional exchanges with the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord's Lila, you're not seeing that, and it's going on simultaneamente, simultaneously, for those of you who don't speak Spanish. So it's going on without stoppage here. This is what Prabhupada says. They come into this material world to serve the Lord's purpose, and they enjoy the Lord Krishna's company without stoppage. The ever-liberated person who works on Krishna's behalf enjoys Lord Krishna's company through his engagement. Now, I've actually experienced that. Of course, I'm not saying I'm ever liberated. Oh my God. Far from the truth. But when I'm fully engaged in Krishna's service, I'm actually associating with Lord Krishna through the surface. Of course, there's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which you all know, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavya Brahmagno Brahmanaltam Brahmatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Smadhanam, that if one is completely absorbed in Krishna's service, that is samadhi. And everything connected with that service, such as the person doing the service, such as the service itself, the results of the service, the place of the service, everything becomes Brahman or spiritualized at that particular juncture. So, I've experienced that I associate with Krishna through my service. And the reason that we don't get disturbed when the results don't come that we sort of wanted from the service is because it's already successful. Just like in preaching, sometimes preaching, sharing, compassion, whatever you call it. Sometimes in sharing Krishna consciousness, you make so much endeavor to try to help someone, and they slip away, and they go back to Krishna's illusory energy. It's just like, sometimes I use the example, just like if you're a lifesaver. Let's say when I was young, I had a certified life-saving license. Maybe not the highest level, but anyway. But I was a lifesaver. Not one of those little round things with a hole in them that you put in your mouth, or that you put around you to save you. But anyway, I was lifeguard of some sorts. I never got paid for it, never did it commercially or anything like that, but I could save someone. So, sometimes when you go out and someone's drowning, well, first of all, you gotta really slap them around a little bit so they don't grab hold of you and pull you under. We have that happen, not with me, but with some other devotees in Fiji, that the person who was drowning was grabbing hold of the person who was trying to save them, and the second person tried to save them had to just go underwater and push them towards the shore. So, anyway, but sometimes you may be trying to help someone and they go under. And that's part of the activity of trying to help people in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, because people can choose to go under. True lifesaver. No, I can't even save my own life. So anyway, so people can choose to go under, but you have a right to your service. Like if you start to get really upset, they chose to get under, it's my fault, they chose to get under, I could have saved them. You tried your best. You tried your best. Of course, if you did something to drive them away from Krishna consciousness, then you are responsible. But otherwise, you have a right to your service. But the result is up to Krishna. So the success is being able to do your service as best you can within the limits of your abilities. And your abilities are not unlimited like Krishna's abilities. But even Krishna, when he wants to save someone, the person who Krishna is wanting to save can say, "No way, Prabhu." You say, should you call God Prabhu? Yes, because Prabhu means master. No way, God. Leave me alone, God. I got my own life, God. Why are you imposing these regulative principles, God? Why don't you be kinder and let me do whatever I want and be God conscious? Let me pig out and be God conscious. Sometimes God tries, and he's not always successful in the sense of the conditioned soul coming back to the spiritual world, because the conditioned soul has free will. That's we have to remind ourselves of. But the success is that we're trying our best. Take shelter in that particular thought. The ever-conditioned soul, provoked by lusty desires to enjoy the material world, is forced to transmigrate from one body to another. Sometimes he is elevated to higher planetary systems, and sometimes is degraded to hellish planets and subjected to the tribulations of the external energies. So we are on the middle planetary systems, and it is pretty bad, except for Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Due to being conditioned by the external energy, the conditioned soul within this material world gets two kinds of bodies. A gross material body, that means this thing, you see? The blood and the guts and the tridaduke, bile, mucus, and air. Oh my God. And the hair. Bile, mucus, hair. That's the gross body. And a subtle material body, which is called the astral material body, ethereal material body, a linga sharira, the body made of mind, intelligence, and false ego, composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Due to the gross and subtle bodies, he is subjected to the threefold miseries, adhyatmic, adipadic, and adidaivic, miseries arising from the body and mind, other living entities, and natural disturbances caused by demigods from higher planetary systems. The conditioned soul subject to the threefold material miseries is ceaselessly kicked by Maya. Stop kicking. And this is his disease. If by chance he meets a saintly person who works on Krishna's behalf to deliver conditioned souls, and if he agrees to abide by his order, he can gradually approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna. Here we go. Kamadinam katina katida palita dur nideshas tesham yatamai nakuranandrapa nopashantihi utsrijayatan natayadupate sampratam labdabudis twamayata shararam apayam mam Yugshvat Matashe. O my Lord, there's no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Phew. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. That's true. They haven't gone away. They're still harassing me. Not me. You. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the outer dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of those desires, and I now come to you and surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. In other words, as they say, just say no. Because the mind is always accepting, these are the desires, accepting and rejecting things based upon what's pleasing or displeasing. Just like, right now, let's say after class, my mind may say, eat ice cream. Ice cream. And of course, if I meditate on it enough, as we know from the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, I get more attached, and there's lust towards it, bewilderment, so many things happen. Anger. How can you get angry at ice cream? But you get angry if you don't get it, like a little kid. Like a little kid, wants something. I must have. And if he doesn't get it, he throws a tantrum. So we literally get angry, and that's called a tantrum. So anyway, what we should do is just refuse. I'm not going to follow my mind's desires, accepting or rejecting things. I'm going to follow the intelligence that tells me what my guru wants me to do. This verse is also quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.2.25. When we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are saying, Hudi, O energy of the Lord. It's vocative, calling out, O my Lord Krishna. In this way, we are simply addressing the Lord and his spiritual potency represented as Radha Krishna, Sitaram, or Lakshmi Narayan. So the words of the Maha Mantra, incidentally, I don't know what happened here. The words of the Maha Mantra are in the vocative form. What does vocative mean? Vocative means to cry out. O Krishna. Hari is like, O energy of the Lord. Krishna means, O Krishna. Rama means, O Radha Raman, O Lord Ram, O Balaram. It's all vocative. Vocative is different than nominative. Nominative means the name. Like we have a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. What is that? Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So that's Krishna in the nominative form. That Krishna is, that's the subject of the sentence, all right? You got it. And you're the subject of the sentence, not of the senses, then it's nominative. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, so the subject is Krishna. And what is Krishna? The object is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee always prays to the Lord in his internal energy consort so that he may engage in their transcendental. What does someone say here? Someone gets angry at the scale after eating ice cream. So the devotee always prays to the Lord and his internal energy consort so they may engage in their transcendental loving service. When the conditioned soul attains his real spiritual identity and fully surrenders at the Lord's lotus feet, he tries to engage in the Lord's service. This is the real constitutional position of the living entity. So to understand your real spiritual identity means you are a servant of Krishna, a friend of Krishna, a parent of Krishna, a lover, married to Krishna, whatever. So then you just serve the Lord at that point. Because when you understand who you are, first you have to understand who you are. That's liberation. That's Jivan Mukta, to understand who you are. Right now, we know vaguely who we are. What does it mean vaguely? Jivara Surabhoy Necha Krishna Das. We're servants of Krishna. But actually, Gopi Bharata, Padakamala Dasa Dasa. Dasa and Das were servants of a servant of Krishna. That's what we know now. That's a glimpse of who we are. But then as the sun rises in the morning, then gradually all the shadows disappear and we can see everything in its full color. So that comparison is made in the Bhagavad Gita. The sun rises in the morning, then everything is revealed to one, just like the sun rises in the morning. Krishna Bhakti Haya Avideya Pradhana Bhakti Mukha Nirikshaka Karma Yoga Jnana. Devotional service to Krishna is the chief function of the living entity. There are different methods for the liberation of the conditioned soul: karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti. But all the others are dependent on bhakti. So it's described that they're all different rungs on the yoga ladder. So here's a ladder. Just picture a ladder in your mind. So a ladder has different steps, which are called rungs. Anyway. And so when you step from one step to another, you get to the highest step. The highest step in this particular case is called bhakti. And Krishna corroborates this in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, last verse, Yogi Namapi Sarvesham, in which he says of all the yogis and processes of yoga, the best yogi is he who meditates on me with undeviating devotion. Yogi Namapi Sarvesham Madhya Antaratmana Shradave, with great faith. And he worships me. Same Yuktadamo Mataha. He is considered by me to be the best of all yogis. So anyway, karma yoga, let's describe what that is. Karma yoga basically means it's to offer the results of your activities to Krishna. Now remember, in Bhakti Yoga, you also do that. So what's the difference? In Karma Yoga, you're doing it basically as a ritual, in one sense. And secondly, you have some desires to fulfill. Hopefully you get something out of it. That's called Karma Mishra Bhakti. Okay? And your goal is not clearly focused in your mind to love Krishna. Because if you were doing everything for Krishna and you're doing it out of love, that would be called Bhakti Yoga. And so Jnana Yoga means basically to try to detach yourself from this material world, to find out or figure out what the absolute truth is using your mental faculties. And yoga, in this particular context, is a reference to Hatha Yoga, which means basically control the senses. And ultimately, when you control the senses, the whole purpose of controlling the senses is to meditate on Krishna. And in Bhakti, you meditate on Krishna automatically. You understand the absolute truth automatically. And all your activities are dedicated to Krishna. So in other words, it includes the results from karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti. That's why it says that all the others are dependent on bhakti, because without bhakti, you can't progress to a higher stage. You can't even do any of these other forms of yoga without a tinge of bhakti. A little tinge of bhakti. So the tinge of bhakti begins or starts with belief that there is a God, and Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Alrighty. Esava sadhanera ati tucha bala Krishna bhakti vanataha dite nare pala. Without devotional service, all other methods for spiritual self-realization are weak and insignificant. Unless one comes to the devotional service of Lord Sri Krishna, Jnana Yoga, or Jnana and Yoga, cannot give the desired results. In the Vedic scriptures, stress is sometimes given to fruitive activity Speculative knowledge, fruitive activity means you do something for the fruits. Speculative activity means try to figure things out with your little tiny, teeny brain. And the mystic yoga system, which means basically to control the senses, but ultimately we get these yoga cities. City doesn't mean a place with a lot of buildings. City means a lot of powers. We can become very small or very big. Or you can float in the air, or you can capture someone's mind. Although people are inclined to practice these processes, they cannot attain the desired results after being touched by Krishna Bhakti devotional service. In other words, the real desired result is to invoke dormant love for who? Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam 126 states, Savayabhum samharadharmo yata bhaktir adhoksajaya haitat yat pratyata yatma superseded. A famous verse. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain, and also ladies, can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated. In other words, you can have a motivation, but it can't be, I'm going to get something from this. People will like me. I'll get money. I get a visa for the United States. Whatever. That's unmotivated and uninterrupted. In other words, it must continue in spite of all the impediments, trials, tribulations, tests that you may have to undergo, and you will have to undergo. Just like even if one gets married in this world, I'm not suggesting that for everybody, then there's this vow that people take, and happiness and distress, and summer and winter seasons. No, it doesn't say that. And it says, till death do your part. Of course, we understand sometimes at death they don't part, they stay together as little animalitos in their next life. So anyway, that's the point. Loyalty, true blue, being loyal to Krishna and sticking to Tatenakampam, Sumushramana, Punjinavatma Kritam Vipakam, Ridvad before beer. Vidadam namaste, jiveta yo mukti pade sadayavak. In spite of all the reverses that may occur, one goes on serving Krishna with his body, mind, and words, or body, heart, and words. Ridva, Purvir, Bharata, Vidadam namaste. Anyway, so this is what will satisfy the self, because that's love. It's a loving propensity. The only thing that satisfies the heart is the unlimited expression of love. And if one has that, then all the other needs become inconsequential, even if you don't get enough to eat. But of course, until you reach that stage, you better make sure you got enough to eat, you got a place to sleep, you got all your other needs fulfilled, because you're not going to get to that stage unless you actually take care of the lower needs. Remember that. But if you're at that stage, Nijahara Vihara, as described about the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they didn't really worry about eating or any of that other stuff. It's like, I'm not on that level, so I worry about eating. I don't worry. Krishna always gives enough. But I'm not like Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, he would simply wait until someone calls him for food. He wouldn't, this was his vow. Can you imagine that? I'm not going to eat unless someone calls me to eat. I am not on that platform personally. I will get on my phone and call people. Not only call people, I'll cook for myself. Because I'm my favorite cook. So we're not on that level, so we have to be practical. Karma, jnana, and yoga cannot actually awaken love of God. That's obvious. One has to take to the Lord's devotional service, and the more one is inclined to devotional service, the more he loses interest in so-called other achievements. Dhruva Maharaj went to practice mystic yoga to see the Lord personally face to face, but when he developed an interest in devotional service, he saw that he was not being benefited by karma, jnana, and yoga. So, of course, the whole story of Dhruva Maharaj is that he really wanted a lot. He wanted a kingdom greater than that of Lord Brahma. And so he was executing all these austerities. I mean, really heavy, heavy duty austerities. You know, it got to the point where he wasn't, whoops, sorry about that. I got too ecstatic. I have to watch my ecstasy. I'm just trying to change the, as I relax here, I'm just trying to change the angle of the computer. So it got to the point where he wasn't even eating or drinking or doing anything for the body or sleeping. And so he had a really heavy desire, and his desire was to have a kingdom greater than that of Lord Brahma. But when he saw Krishna, he thought, I was interested in some broken pieces of glass, and now I have found a wonderful gem. And that gem, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nice, this is another famous verse. Nice karmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam nashobate jnanam alam niranjanam kuta punah sasvad abhadramishvarena charpitam karma yad apyakaranam. When pure knowledge is beyond all material affinity, but is not dedicated to the Supreme Personality of God, it does not appear very beautiful, although it is knowledge without a material tinge. What then is the use of fruit of activities which are naturally painful from the beginning and transient by nature? If they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord, how can they be attractive? In other words, even if you know everything about God, right, all the knowledge you need to know about the material world, but are afraid to ask, what's the use of it? If you're not using it to serve God, what's the use of just knowledge for the sake of knowledge? And what's the use of just activities to acquire things for yourself? They're painful from the beginning to the end. And temporary. Transient means temporary. So they're not very attractive to a transcendentalist. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12. Even after writing many Vedic literatures, Vyasadeva felt very morose. Therefore, his spiritual master, Narada Deva, told him that he could be happy by writing about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Up to that time, Srila Vyasadeva had written the Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, sections of the Vedas, but he had not written about Upasana Kanda or Bhakti. Thus, his spiritual master, Narada, chastised him and advised him to write about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Vyasadeva began writing Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, that's the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. That Vyasadeva had written other literatures too, like the Itihasas and the Puranas. Not all the Puranas, but the Itihasas, especially such as the Mahabharata. And basically, there's so much information there, it's hard to ascertain what is the goal of life. Because most of the information in the Vedic literatures deals with the three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And Krishna says this to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita: Trigunya Veda, Nis Trigunya Bhavarjana, Nir Dvandvo Nidusatvasto, Nir Yogakshem Atmavan. He says mainly it's for people in Maya, talking about how to do things in Maya, like how to drive a car or something like that. Of course, that's not in the Vedas, but still, that's Triguna activities. So people would read these Vedic literatures and think, all this Triguna stuff is actually the goal. And Vyasadeva, who had written it, was feeling really disturbed that, he hadn't directly pointed out the devotional service of the Lord. So his spiritual master, Narada Muni, great spiritual master, came to him and said, basically, Prabhu, why are you misleading people? So therefore, you should compile something that deals with the direct pastimes of the Lord and the ultimate goal, prema prayojana. And so Vyasadeva undertook the writing or the dictation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is a result of Vyasadeva being chastised by his spiritual master, coming to the realization that everything he wrote before was useful, wasn't bad, but it was limited in its scope. That's really important. One doesn't want to criticize what was written before, but just say it was limited in its scope. It didn't deal with the purpose of things, which is teleos, which means the purpose and the study purposes, of course. Teleology, there's an ology word for you. Tapasvino dana paraya shashvino manashvino mantra vidasu mangalaha shimamna vinanti vinhayadarpanam tasmai subhadra shavase namo namaha. That's from the Bhagavatam also. Those who perform severe austerities and penances, those who give away all their possessions out of charity, those who are very famous for their auspicious activity, and those who engage in meditation and mental speculation, even those who are very expert in reciting the Vedic mantras, are not able to obtain any auspicious results, although they are engaged in auspicious activities, if they do not dedicate their activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I therefore repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose glories are always auspicious. In other words, all these activities, other than dedicating oneself to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all these activities are temporary. Whatever you get, whatever you do, it's here today, gone tomorrow. So therefore, nasato vijate bhavo, na bhavo vijate sataho, ubayarapi drishtavantas tvanias tatvadarshaphi. Something that's temporary is, one sense, unreal because it's here today, gone tomorrow, like a soap bubble. Is pretty unreal. But devotional service to the Lord, it's permanent, saves you from the most dangerous type of fear, and it's the most auspicious thing. So this is the quotation for the Srimad Bhagavatam, again, second canto, 4th chapter, text 17. Kevala Jnana Mukti Dite Nare Bhakti Vinay Krishnan Mukhe Se Mukti Haya Bina Jnane. Speculative knowledge alone without devotional service is not able to give liberation. Speculative knowledge means to try to figure things out on your own, Prabhu. On the other hand, even without knowledge, one can attain liberation if one engages in the Lord's devotional service. Why is that? Because when one engages in the Lord's service, what is it? Tesham Satyuktanam Bhajatam Pratiparvakam Tadami Buddhiyogam Tam Yenamam Upiyantite. Then Krishna gives direction. If one worships him with love, then one gets direction from Krishna. And if you get direction from Krishna, how much more knowledge do you need? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't study, because that's also direction from Krishna. But if somehow or other one is not able to study, one is illiterate, whatever, then Krishna will give one direction. If one is devoted, to those who are devoted and worship me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One of the nutshell verses. One cannot attain liberation simply by speculative knowledge. Even though one may be able to distinguish between Brahman and matter, one's liberation will be hampered if one is misled into thinking that the living entity is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, one falls down again onto the material platform because considering oneself the Supreme Person, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is offensive. And it's pretty stupid, too. Yeah, it's offensive, and it's probably one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of. When such a person comes in contact with a pure devotee, he can actually become liberated from material bondage and engage in the Lord's service. A prayer by Bilva Mangal Thakur is relevant here. Bhaktistvai stira thara bhagavan yadishyad daivena na pholati divya kishora murtihi mukti swayam Vakuli Tanjale Sevate Svan Dharmartha Kama Gataya Samaya Bhatikshaha. O my Lord, if one engages in your pure devotional service with determination, you become visible in your original transcendental youthful form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as liberation is concerned, she stands before the devotee with folded hands, waiting to render service. Religion economic or economic development and sense gratification are all automatically attained without separate endeavor. That's from Bilbamangal, that course. Excusez-moi. Krishna Caritamrta 107. And so we will end there. And we will end. We did 14 to 21 today. And now we will take some questions from us, I think. Excuse me. Let me unmute you. All right, you're all unmuted. Then there's a question in the chat window. Give me a second. Question in the chat window. Let me answer that first. Hare Krishna Maharaj, the Nityabada, when he returns to the spiritual world, still remains Nityabada? No. So, when the Nityabada goes back to the spiritual world, he's Nityasiddha at that point. He doesn't fall down again because he is actually, excuse me, he actually has experience of this material world and spiritual world. Excuse me. Don't worry, I'm not sick. He has experience of the material world and spiritual world, and he learned his lesson. That's the point. Okay? And there's another one here. Gurudev, will I ever be able to love Krishna without personal tinge and Gopi Baba? Someone wants to be a Gopi. That's interesting. I want a personal message, so I can't reveal their name. Will in any life be able to attain this looking at the present devotional situation? I don't think I have. I haven't even started loving Krishna, Radharani Krishna. Does that mean my false ego is too high? That means you're humble. I know that if you just continue on this path, Krishna says, Kontya pratijanihi, name bhakta pranashati, my devotee will never perish. So, actually, Rupa Goswami called this ashabandha. He says to have great faith, in spite of having no attraction for the processes of devotional service or the hearing and chanting or whatever, I know Krishna's going to save me because I'm sticking to the process. If you have faith, then that's the point. How do you achieve this? Another question, how do you achieve the stage of Nityasiddha? First of all, chant your rounds purely and serve the Vaishnavas. Okay, Shamalini, you have a question. You can unmute yourself. What's your question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my tender pranams. My question is that we talk about Bhakti Devi. I just want to make clear that who is Bhakti Devi? Is it Radharani or Vrinda Devi or Ekadasi Devi? Who is Bhakti Devi?
Radharani is the original Bhakti Devi, and she has many expansions like Vrinda Devi and others, but there's a particular person named Bhakti Devi who is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, who enters the heart of the devotees, and she gives the devotees the Bhakti Lata Bija. But she has many expansions, and Radharani has many expansions, but Radharani is the original Bhakti Devi, and the Bhakti Devi who performs the service of giving us devotional services an expansion of Srimati Radharani. And that Bhakti Devi comes from the sound vibration from Krishna's pure devotee. Bhavanti Vritkarna Rasayana Kata Joshana Dasya Pavarga Vartmani Shradha Ratir Bhakti Anukrameshati. So when we hear from the sadhus, satam sangam mama virya samvado, about Krishna, especially about Krishna's name and Krishna's pastimes and everything like that, then bhakti enters into our heart from the ear. Hritkarna Rasayana Gata. So yes, she's a specific individual who's an expansion of Radharani, if that answers the question.
Okay. Okay, Maharaj. Thank you. And I have
Okay?
one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. As a woman, always, we are kept in the we are kept in the can say that, I don't know, in the security of our elders when we are small, right?
Yes.
With the parents, and after marriage,
Protected, yeah.
yeah, protected under the guidance of parents, and later on under the husband, and
Yes.
if after husband, maybe if the son is there under them,
Yeah, that's right.
then always restricted with their limitations. So where is the so how can we use our free will then?
No, the protection may be external or physical, but our free will internally, what's happening internally in our hearts, no one can change. I mean, we all have to be protected in different ways. Uh, women have their freedom just like men have their freedom, and in different cultures, that's expressed in different ways. I'm not going to deal with the controversial issue that you're bringing up, but there's different cultures. That's just different cultures, and we work within different cultures, but the principle is that both men and women have to be protected. I've seen that generally I have to protect many of my male disciples from illusion or from making foolish mistakes. I mean, just like recently in one country where I'm the GBC, a lot of people want to do these crazy investments, and I had to stop them from doing them because they were crazy. So I had to protect them using greater intelligence. So as far as dealing, with a woman's dharma, a man's dharma, Kshatriya dharma, Varnashram dharma, and everything like that, this has to be applied according to time, place, and circumstance. And also, no one can restrict us internally. Just internally, we can be absorbed in Krishna's pastimes while we're carrying out our duties within this material world. But Lord Chaitanya did not want us to disturb the social order, because it's actually very, very important. Yad yada charati shreshtas tatat eveturo janaha. I mean, we can speak about that some other time. I know the question you're referring to.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. We're supposed to visit your house tomorrow if it's not too much snow.
I'm looking forward for it, Maharaj.
I thought 1 o'clock, isn't it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, 1 o'clock. Okay, I'll be there at 1 o'clock, as long as there's not too much snow.
Okay, Maharaj.
All right, Haribol. Interesting, pointed questions. Sometimes we see very advanced Vaishnavas may disagree with each other to the extent that they don't even operate on the same paradigm. Well, this is really interesting. Yet they still both do immense service. And Srila Prabhupada said that the spiritual activities of the members of the Krishna consciousness of ISKCON are activities of Vaikuntha. So two Vaishnavas in question be members of different camps, like there are different groups in Goloka Vrindavan. There's different ways of applying Krishna consciousness according to time, place, and circumstance. As long as we respect someone else's service. I don't criticize other Vaishnavas, just like you may be referring to the fact that my approach to Krishna consciousness is pretty liberal in comparison to other people's approach. Not everyone's. I mean, I'm not the most liberal, nor am I the most conservative. I'm sort of middle of the road. And I don't criticize. I appreciate everybody's approach to Krishna consciousness, because Krishna consciousness is something in the heart. It's not an external thing so much. It's expressed externally. But my approach is whatever works and helps you focus your heart on Krishna. Accept everything favorable, reject everything unfavorable. Maybe apply differently according to time, place, and circumstance, and different people with different social outlooks or mentalities or emotional beings or whatever like that. I don't know if I would compare that, people with different approaches to preaching in this world to like gopas and gopis, like Radharani's party and Chandravali's party. I don't know, but there's different varieties. Like there's different people like different types of prasadam. It's not one type is best, another type is best. If you ask me, I like bagel prasadam. You can't. So, but I respect. If someone likes chapatis, I also like chapatis. If someone likes ladus, I also like ladus. But my favorite would be something different. Okay. On that happy note, from the outside, we should not take sides. And if we see some fighting between Vaishnavas, we just understand it's a pious time. Just like there's the example of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who had a difference of opinion from his brother Lalit Prasad Thakur. They were both sons of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Prabhupada said that we should not deal with that difference of opinion. It was a transcendental disagreement, although they criticized each other. Not in a negative way, not with bad words like we do in the Western world. But Prabhupada said we should see it as transcendental and stay away when devotees have a different point of view. Advanced devotees, just stay away from it. Stay away. It's advanced devotees dealing with a particular subject matter. I think that's really good. There's no need for us to take sides, no need for us to even hear about it if something transcendental is going on. Just like if you hear about Radharani on one side and Chandravali on the other side, if you're not on that platform, just stay away from it, because you don't understand what's happening. They're all just trying to please Krishna. I mean, that's perfection, fighting over how to please Krishna. Instead of fighting over what flavor ice cream you're going to eat, like most rascals do. You should fight over how you're going to serve Krishna. Okay, I think on that happy note, it is time to call it a day, time to end the party. And we will see everybody, same time, same station, tomorrow evening. Thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.